The Republican reaction to the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago has swung from hysterical to quite uneasy. But the main takeaway is this: the GOP is nowhere near ready to quit Donald Trump. The day after the search, House Republicans posed for pictures with Trump in Bedminster, New Jersey, opting not to cancel the long-scheduled meeting despite the Fed's escalating investigation. And then, just hours after Trump was deposed by New York State Attorney General in a separate civil probe on Wednesday, dozens rallied around the former president again in Bedminster at a fundraiser for Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew, a former Democrat who switched parties to support Trump. All the while, we have heard remarkably irresponsible comments from sitting U.S. senators like Marco Rubio of Florida, currently vice chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Instead of calling for caution and patience, something you'd expect during the DOJ's investigation, here's how Senator Rubio and some of his fellow Republican senators reacted to the FBI search.
I actually don't think they went in looking for documents. I think that was probably their excuse, that they found some Obama donor judge to write him a ruse. Yeah, they found some Obama donor judge to write, not even a judge, a magistrate to write and give them the search warrant.
This should scare the living daylights out of American citizens and say, we have got to change our federal government. The way our federal government has gone, it's like what we thought about the Gestapo and people like that they just go after people.
I think that there are a lot of questions that we justifiably have, and we want answers, because if the FBI can do this to President Donald Trump, they can do it to you.
So some of the outrage cooled a bit after A.G. Garland spoke out about the investigation. But my suggestion to my former party is simply this: let's just wait for all the facts to fall in place. At the very least, let's at least turn down the temperature. Joining me now is Democratic strategist and my good friend Kurt Bardella. He's an advisor to the DNC and the DCCC. Good to see you, my friend Kurt, in warm California, of course. so Kurt,
worst places to be, my friend.
Yeah, I know. I'm a little jealous right now. So, look, Kurt, I want to jump into this, okay? I want you to take us down how the GOP has been reacting to this. You know all too well from your previous experience where this is likely going to go from a Republican perspective. But with midterms being so close, do you think Republicans need to turn it down a little bit, Kurt, or do you think they risk in some of those more competitive races turning some swing voters against them?
Yeah, I think that when you look at the posture that they've taken, it really actually, on some level, it surprises me, because what we know about Donald Trump is that there's always another shoe to drop. We know that he's fundamentally untruthful. He's a pathological liar. And so for the Republican Party, less than 100 days to the midterm elections, to put all of their stones in Donald Trump's bag, not really knowing the full picture, not knowing what law enforcement has or doesn't has. It's like you're flying blind here, and you're exposing yourself to tremendous political risk. You don't get to run on being the party of pro-law enforcement, Blue Lives Matter, talking about justice and checks and balances, and then turn around and start putting a target on the backs of law enforcement, on public safety, on the FBI, on the Justice Department. I think that they run a risk of alienating independent voters, middle-of-the-road Republican voters who stayed with the party even though they may not like Donald Trump. Those are people who believe in checks and balances, in law and order. They believe that nobody, no matter what political party you are, is above the law. And I don't think that voters are going to really appreciate the fact that this Republican Party is circling the wagons around someone who seems to just run a criminal enterprise in every facet of his life.
I mean, look, Kurt, they wouldn't even cancel the meeting at Bedminster, for goodness sakes, to at least say, hey, let's just take a step back and see where this is going. But I want to play what Republican Congressman Mike Turner had to say about congressional oversight for all of these Trump investigations.
We have serious questions concerning the actions taken by Director Wray and ordered by Attorney General Garland to raid Mar-a-Lago and the personal residence of Donald Trump. Both of them are subject to oversight by Congress, and it is our job to ensure that they are not abusing their discretion or politicizing the powers that we have given them.
I mean, Kurt, what's your reaction to that?
Well, listen, first of all, Mike Turner is a weapons-grade idiot. The idea that this guy could eventually be the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee should terrify just about every single person in the United States of America. Second of all, I don't remember Mike Turner or any of his Republican cohorts saying the same thing about the FBI when they were doing an investigation into Hillary Clinton. So all of a sudden, the shoe's on the other foot and they don't like it. It's hypocrisy at its worst. And moreover, they're playing politics with national security. They're playing politics with classified information. For all the rhetoric we heard from Mike Turner and Jim Jordan and Louis Gohmert and Matt Gaetz and all the other guys about how Hillary Clinton handled her own email server or Hunter Biden's laptop, here we have a former president who had classified information that he shouldn't have had the opportunity over and over again to turn it over. He didn't. It does beg the question why. And all the while they're out there saying that they're going to have all these oversight committee hearings. It's really interesting to watch Republicans rediscover their zeal for oversight after pretty much saying congressional oversight doesn't apply to the executive branch, saying it was okay for Donald Trump to ignore congressional subpoenas, that it was okay for his administration not to appear at congressional hearings, to they themselves, some of these members, ignore subpoenas from the January 6th committee, a congressional committee. You don't get to defy oversight on one hand and then say you're going to use it with the other.
I mean, we're not surprised by the hypocrisy, though, Kurt, are we? So, look, Kurt, you and I talk about this all the time in private. We're good friends. I want you to lay out for the viewers, what are the risks for Democrats and Republicans here when you sort of assess this current landscape and the investigations? Who do you think has more to lose?
I think that the Republicans do, only because ultimately what we saw from Attorney General Merrick Garland the other day was him calling Trump's bluff. He says, you want the information out there? Okay, we're going to go to a judge and put it out there. If the information that Donald Trump has in his possession could exonerate him, he would have released it already. The fact that he hasn't pretty much tells you who has what to lose. And I think that any time that you align yourself with people who are just dishonest, who really don't believe in loyalty, who you cannot trust, you're putting yourself in a very precarious position. And just like we've seen, whether it was former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, whether it was Trump's personal attorney Michael Cohen, you will get burned. He will run the bus over you back and forth to get himself out of a jam. We've seen it over and over again. That's why it actually at times surprises me that these Republicans fall over and bend over backwards for a guy who would stab them in the back in a New York minute if it suited him.
But Kurt, I want to push back here and play devil's advocate a little bit. I mean, looking at most polling indicators, Republicans will do well in November. They're likely to take back control of the House. I think the question at this point is by what margin. But tying themselves to Trump is seemingly working for the party. I mean, if they do regain control, what do you say to the American people who are wondering, well, how in the heck is this possible when Kurt just said that Republicans are the ones who have the most to lose?
Well, again, I think that really remains to be seen, because here's what I do know. When Donald Trump is the fundamental centerpiece of an election, he loses. In 2018, they lost. 2020, he lost. In the Senate Georgia races, they lost. So the idea that Donald Trump is somehow this great reservoir that lifts Republicans, I don't see any real data to back that up. And frankly, the idea that Democrats are in trouble in November, I think, is a complete fallacy. I've been saying for a long time now that I do not believe and that things are as bleak and bad as the media and the pundits made it out to be. I think it's like sports. I think Republicans peaked too early. I think they've spent the last 3 weeks now saying no to veterans, yes to China, no to lowering prescription drugs, no to lowering the cost of insulin, no to passing the most comprehensive climate bill that we've seen, as states like Kentucky are flooding and states like California are on fire. I don't think that you can win an election when you say no to everything, and the only thing that you're saying yes to is Donald Trump.
Kurt, there's a part of me that wants to put some money on this bet, but I'm not sure that I'm going to, because you might actually be right about this. So look, Kurt, we've been talking about the demise of Trump for a while now. Look, 2 impeachments, January 6th committee hearings, and now we have the DOJ executing a search warrant of Trump's residence. Is this more of the same, and are people going to tune out of the latest Trump controversy, or is this actually different? Because everybody's been saying, oh, it was different then. Oh, it was different because of the hearings. And here we are again, Kurt. People are saying it's different. I don't know if I agree with that, man.
Yeah, I think we'll see what ultimately comes from this. Again, these are very methodic and deliberate investigations, whether it's the attorney generals, whether it's the one in New York, whether it's the case in Georgia. I do think that the one commonality here is Donald Trump is under siege. I mean, this is a guy who's fighting wars on multiple fronts, and all the while, the only defense that he can seem to come up with is to try to incite his supporters, his cult, to try to take violent actions against law enforcement. And I do not believe that's a winning recipe. When we see someone who participated in January 6th decide to try to take matters into his own hands and attack an FBI office in Ohio, that's not going to do Republicans well. If we start seeing a rise of violent extremism and domestic terrorism, that's not going to do Republicans any good in November.
No, Kurt, I mean, I think you have a good point, and the president's rhetoric is certainly potentially contributing to that. My friend Kurt Bardella, thanks so much for joining.